I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president until I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that
Hey internets, so now that the dust has settled with the Trump-Biden debate, I'd like to give a unique review of it. And what I mean by that is reviewing it in a way that explains what we can learn from it, specifically about the optics question. Because while it's true that optics should never matter more than truth, that doesn't mean that optics do not matter at all, and the context of live debates tend to show this fact in a way that nothing else really does. I'm also going to do a little bit of reviewing, well, the reviews, what other people had to say about this debate, because there's a few common things I've noticed and a few misconceptions that people have been having and things that people have been missing about the Trump-Biden debate that they're just kind of getting wrong that do need to be pointed out. Although, first things first, just to get the painfully obvious out of the way, Biden got absolutely destroyed in this debate. He lost quite hard to the point that anybody who tries to say that he won the debate either doesn't really understand what live debates are actually about, or they're just extremely delusional. Which, by the way, is the first funny thing to kind of point out, because it just kind of goes to show you just how delusional some people can really be. There are actually people out there who think that Biden won this debate, and they believe that the media is biased in favor of Trump because they're saying that Biden lost this debate. In other words, they are so biased in favor of Biden that they're just going to think that he won no matter what he does. And they are then psychologically projecting their bias onto the media, despite the fact that the mainstream media is pretty solidly mostly center-left leading, which is exactly the position of where the DNC tends to lie. So obviously the fact that the liberal media is saying that Biden lost isn't proof that the liberal media has somehow gone turncoat and that they're now supporting Donald Trump. That is very obviously not the case. That's a pretty simple, straightforward take to have, but it is worth pointing out that there are people out there who think that Biden won and they're psychologically projecting their own bias onto the media. Or perhaps just a little disturbing that people who think like this exist, depending on which way you want to put it. However, there is a similar take that I've noticed that slightly smarter, noticeably less delusional people have been having that isn't exactly correct either. And so that's where you get these debate reviews where people try to review the debate by tallying up the things that Trump got right and Trump got wrong, and then tallying up the things that Biden got right and Biden got wrong, and then they review the debate entirely based on the facts of the matter and what positions our candidates had. Yeah, sorry, no, that is not what the live debate format does, or what it's about, or how it works. I've stated before why flat earthers tend to be good at debates. And it's not because flat earth is correct, it's because live debates are all about delivery. Most people, for whatever silly reason, do not actually fact-check debates. They watch them as entertainment, and a lot of people just accept them as fact based on the performance. And when I say performance, I don't mean being correct. I mean that live debates are often a clown show, where the funniest clown wins. I mean, I hate to once again break it to those of you who think that debates are all about who's correct, but that is not how it works. Every good debater knows that it's not so much about being factually correct, it's about saying something that your opponent can't necessarily refute in the heat of the moment. He who understands the on-the-spot fallacy better and uses it to his advantage wins the debate. I wish it wasn't like that, but that's how it is. That's not to say that there's no value whatsoever in fact-checking a debate. There absolutely is, and it is something that people should do. It's just that doing so doesn't really tell you who won, because you win debates by winning the audience. So it's all about delivery, and it's all about getting hits in, which means that good arguments in a debate aren't necessarily good arguments, but rather they are arguments that cannot immediately be refuted. So anyways, back on topic. There are quite a few people out there who seem to think that Biden simply lost the debate and it's not so much that Trump won. That is not true. Trump actually did win the debate. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that Trump said things that were correct and true all the time. In fact, Trump largely did his usual exaggerations. Trump is a boaster. He likes to take things that were moderately successful and pretend like it was the greatest thing that happened ever. For instance, he largely had better economic policy than Barack Obama did, but then of course Trump exaggerates that to be the greatest economy in American history or whatever, which is not really the case. Trump's economic policies were better than average, I would say, but of course that's just averaging out all other presidents. It's not exactly a high bar to reach. However, despite the fact that Trump got a few things wrong, I still say that Trump won the debate. And I think that the people who are saying, oh, it's not so much that Trump won, it's just that Biden didn't do very well in comparison, I think that's a bad take, because it deeply misunderstands what a debate is all about. They're not about scoring the most facts. And it's not even about who has the best logic and reasoning skills. It would be nice if live debates were like that, but unfortunately they're not, which is part of the reason why I've stated I don't really like them very much. No, live debates are all about the message. They're all about the emotion. They're all about someone getting their point across and saying something that resonates with the audience. And if you've ever seen some of the debate bros who have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and followers and whatnot actually talk about this in a moment of honesty, they'll usually admit this to you in some way or form. Just about every single debate bro knows that you're not really debating your opponent so much as you're trying to convince the audience that your opponent is wrong. And the way that you do that is you capitalize on your opponent's weakness. You find something that they're doing wrong, specifically something that the audience really does not like, and you then expose that weakness in such a way that it gets the audience feeling like they are on your side or feeling like you are on their side, whichever way. Doesn't really matter. In other words, live debates are an optics game, not a truth game. You score points based on how you make the audience feel and whether or not they think that what you're saying resonates more with them than what the other guy is saying. In many ways, it's about making yourself look like the authentic one and making your opponent look like the fraud, or at least that's how it tends to usually go in most political debates anyways. And as far as optics went, Trump nailed it pretty hard. Specifically this moment right here.
On the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
So yeah, I guarantee you when that specific moment dropped on the debate, pretty much every single DNC strategist probably shat their pants. Because what they just saw is what debate analysts will sometimes call a moment. A specific time during the debate where one debate opponent completely goes in for the kill and nails it. And I guarantee you that Trump probably knew what he was doing too. Trump probably went into this debate knowing about the whole Biden has dementia narrative, but also knowing that he can't really fully call it out. He just has to somehow find a way to show it without really saying it. And by stating that he doesn't know what Biden said and then accusing Biden of not really saying it either, in a moment where Biden probably didn't really know what he was saying, Trump took advantage of Biden's weakness, which is his obvious cognitive decline, in a deadpan way that will likely resonate with people who were tired of the media pretending like Biden is not suffering from any cognitive degeneration. And yes, I finally get to say pretending now with a past tense here, because it was made so obviously apparent in this debate that Biden likely suffers from some form of sundowners that even left-leaning media now that usually has Biden's back has been forced to accept that Biden's brain is, to put it nicely, very much past its prime. And sadly, it's not really a laughing matter. I've had to personally deal with someone in my family who was suffering from cognitive decline until the unfortunate day came that they passed away. It's not a fun thing. It's not really a laughing matter. It's actually quite seriously disturbing, especially when we have to remind ourselves that Joe Biden is the president of the United States, or at least he's supposed to be. And this is kind of the immediate message that a lot of publications immediately had. People were then shooting out the question, well, it's pretty obvious that Biden isn't actually in charge, so who is? Is it Kamala? Is it Jill Biden? Or is it just his administration in general that's playing him like a puppet? It's abundantly clear now that Biden probably isn't the one calling all the shots. And again, this has been pretty darn obvious for quite a long while. Anybody who's been paying attention to American politics for the last few years or so, who possesses any basic level of pattern recognition skills, will have noticed that Biden is showing the symptoms of, again, cognitive decline. And the thing that really resonated with voters here, the thing that Trump perfectly capitalized on, is the gaslighting. People in the United States who were paying any level of attention to what was going on were growing tired of the media pretending like there's nothing wrong with Biden. Tired of this narrative that it is somehow a conspiracy theory to suggest that Biden might actually be in cognitive decline. And this debate night just made it so painfully obvious that he is, that the floodgates broke. Even CNN, which normally plays pretty heavy defense for the Biden administration, is now publishing articles where medical experts are questioning Biden's cognitive abilities. Again, just months ago, much of the liberal left media was calling this a conspiracy theory. Now it's not even an open secret. Now it's just something that we all just kind of accept. Because of course it wasn't just that specific moment I showed you. If you watched the whole debate, you'd know that Biden was terrible throughout the entire debate. He was sleepy, he had low energy, he didn't look like he knew where he was half the time. And again, that's all important because again, optics. I mean, let's just talk about optics for a bit. Because here's the thing, Biden said a lot of untrue statements in this debate as well. But even if Biden was completely truthful in this debate, which he wasn't, I'll get into that a little bit later in this video, And that just adds to the fire, by the way. But ultimately wouldn't have mattered. He still would have lost. Because the thing is, optics is more like a bonus rather than something that is in stark contrast to truth. You can get up on a stage and make a truthful statement and do it with charisma, and you will have both truth and optics. You can also get up on stage and tell the truth and crap your pants, and then slip on your own crap on the way down, after having mumbled your message in a way that barely anybody understood it. You can also get up on stage and lie with charisma. It's not really a mutually exclusive thing, and a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that it is. With the exception, of course, of prestige-seeking cathedral-like grifters, who know that their message isn't actually true, and so they thus must rely entirely on optics to get their point across. However, this does not mean that you should be dishonest about what you believe for the sake of optics. That's kind of a high time preference maneuver. It might work in the heat of the moment. You might get the audience on your side right then and there. The problem is when people lie about their principles for the sake of making themselves look better by staying within the Overton window or whatever, it only works until people find out that you lied. For instance, let's look at everybody's favorite mid-witted debate bro, Voosh, for a second. Voosh is very well known to lie and say things that he knows are not true, and make accusations that he knows are not true, because he knows it'll make him look better at the time. And it does get him an audience. The problem is the audience that you garnish when you do that is an audience of people who are fools. And it also just kind of puts a hard limit on you. If you're constantly placing optics above truth, the only people who are going to like your content are the people who consistently do not bother to ever fact check you on anything ever. And that's just not sustainable. So of course, the correct thing to do, the correct path for optics, is to care about both optics and truth. And this is something I believe that libertarians can learn from and really could do better at in general. I'm not saying we should change the message, just do better at giving it. If you're going to a convention to talk, make sure you dress nice, make sure you're well groomed, make sure you look the part. And speaking of which, take care of your health. Do you even lift? No, seriously, I'm not memeing here. Do you lift? If you don't lift, you should lift. You'll look better, you'll be stronger, you'll be healthier, and it comes with cognitive benefits as well. You should never sacrifice principles because that will screw you over in the long run, and as well just effectively means that you don't really believe anything. But that doesn't mean that optics don't matter. Things like aesthetics and being more charismatic in how you word your message so that people understand you better. These are things about optics that don't sacrifice the message in any way, and they absolutely matter. There's pretty good evidence and a lot of solid studies showing that people are very highly affected by these things. And the absolute freakout of Biden's terrible performance is an excellent example of this. Biden was not charismatic. He was boring, he was sleepy, he was confused. He looked so bad that it looked like he didn't even have a place being there at the night. On the flip side, Trump was actually significantly more behaved than he usually is. Trump has a tendency to be, well, Trump. He's bombastic, he's overbearing, to the point where Donald Trump can, well, occasionally come across as a little bit crazy. This is why I'd say that Biden actually won the debate back in 2020 when he said, "Will you shut up, man?" while Trump was interrupting him and being annoying. It resonated with the audience's general dislike for Donald Trump as a personality back then. Getting a good zinger with good optics and delivery like that can absolutely win you the debate. That's why Trump's "I don't think he knows what he said either" line in this age is a similar winning strike. And it just kind of goes to show that while you might think that optics are dumb and they're beneath you, especially if you're really deep into philosophy, that doesn't mean that optics are not important. And yet, during the debate night he just had with Biden, Trump didn't really show any of those problems. He was calm, he was collected, and he delivered his message in a way that people could understand it, which Biden completely failed to do. And all Trump really had to do to win this debate was point out the fact that Biden was not getting his message across. And that's really all it takes to win a live debate. It may be silly and seem a little bit stupid that it's like that, but if you go through some various articles that corporate media has been publishing as their reaction to this debate, it becomes pretty clear that this is definitely a thing. For instance, look at this recent Cope from MSNBC. They're actually willing to throw Biden under the bus now and go with Kamala Harris. These people are absolutely panicking. And here's the thing, it's actually worse than they think. Because there was another thing I noticed during this debate that not everybody is talking about, which is that this debate kind of showed that Biden's personality isn't that great either. People often give Trump the criticism that his personality is not presidential, but the reality is Biden has a very similar problem, he's just better at hiding it. But not with that debate night. There was one particular lie that really stood out, which is when Biden and Trump were talking about immigration, and Biden told several lies about the Border Patrol and what the stance of the Border Patrol is. In fact, the Border Patrol Union called out Joe Biden's lies and said on Twitter, "To be clear, we never have and never will endorse Biden." And what makes this lie particularly disturbing is how enraged Biden was when he said it. The times that Biden tends to be the most emotionally engaged are the times when he is flat out lying. A person who is able to put the most energy in when they're not telling the truth is showing a very big personality red flag, because that is not normal. That is what pathological liars do. That is what psychos do. A lot of people on the left will attack Donald Trump using statements like this, but if you pay closer attention, you'll realize that Biden's actually worse. It's just that Biden is usually calmer than Donald Trump. He has a better standard default demeanor than Trump, and that makes people kind of overlook the times that Biden slips the mask. And this is just honestly one of the reasons why, even though I don't endorse either candidate, I think that both of them honestly are just too old and should throw in the towel and pass the torch to somebody else in their party. I do prefer Trump over Biden. I will admit that. Because the thing with Trump is you kind of know what you're getting. Trump is, again, kind of a blowhard, a boaster. For instance, look at this little excerpt from Joe Biden's Twitter account. "Donald Trump set a new record for the most lies told in a single debate. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well and everybody was amazed by it. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, blah, 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 blah." Basically what I mentioned earlier. And there's a lot of other little things in here, like we had largely fixed COVID, or that people can't buy groceries anymore. And all of these things kind of reveal how Donald Trump tends to take things. Trump rarely ever actually tells outright lies. Trump just tends to exaggerate on the things he did well, while exaggerating what his opponents have done poorly. But the thing is, I suspect that a lot of Trump supporters kind of know this about Trump. I don't think there's a single Trump supporter who saw this message from Joe Biden and really gave even the slightest crap about it. Calling a Trump a liar over these, it's half true, but it's more of a nitpick than anything else. Because Trump is someone who makes more sense the least literally you take him. For instance, saying that the veterans and soldiers can't stand Biden, and that they think that he's the worst commander-in-chief ever. Well, I'm sure there are some soldiers and veterans who think that about Joe Biden, but probably not all of them. But again, I'm pretty sure everyone knows that not all of them feel that way when Trump talks like that. And that's kind of the problem with calling these all lies. They're only really lies if you take Trump literally at everything he says. Now, sure, there's a good point here. Trump shouldn't be exaggerating everything. It's an annoying thing that Trump does. It's an annoying thing that a lot of people in the media do. And the reason they do it is pretty obvious. Again, optics. And that's really the point I'm trying to make here. Being an optics cuck loops around to bad optics eventually. There are a lot of bread tubers out there who are absolutely optics cucks, who partook in the age-old leftist tradition of shifting the goalpost. And they are now, well, paying the price for it. People are realizing more and more that breadtoids don't actually really believe in anything, at least consistently. However, these failures do not necessarily mean that optics should not be taken into account. Optics do matter, and optics do win people over to your side. So as long as you're not sacrificing anything for the sake of optics, it is important to remember that if you have bad optics, you're going to end up in this situation that Biden is in currently. Because if I were to rate Donald Trump and Biden just purely on the factual statements that they made, and just ignore how those statements were presented, I would give Trump a 6 out of 10 and Biden a 4 out of 10. The times that Trump was being factual in his overall ideas were just a smidge above Biden. However, if I take optics into account, if I take charisma and character and delivery and emotion and the ever-important goal of saying something that resonates strongly with the audience, then Trump gets a 7 out of 10. Again, he didn't really do great, he just did better than I expected him to do. But Biden, on the other hand, gets a solid 2 out of 10. The only way he could have possibly done worse and earned that hard 1 out of 10 is if he just completely brain farted and forgot his own name, and then started wandering away from the podium, and started asking Donald Trump and as well as the debate moderators where he was, and asking where his wife was and whatnot, as doing that would show that Biden is actually in a much more serious stage of cognitive decline. Again, if you've ever dealt with or had to take care of someone who suffers from this kind of decline before, you know that it gets kind of bad in the end. In the later stages, they just have moments where their mind goes completely blank. They don't know who they are, they don't know what they are, they don't know when they are. So fortunately for Biden, he's more or less showing signs that he's in the early stages of dementia rather than the late stages. It was bad. Again, 2 out of 10 bad, but it's not as bad as he could possibly have done. If Joe Biden loses the upcoming election to Donald Trump, which the poll numbers pretty strongly suggest that that's most likely what's going to happen, a lot of political analysts will probably look back on this particular debate moment as the point in time when Biden's loss was solidified, or his point of no return, you could say. And him salvaging or saving his campaign in some way is likely going to take some kind of miracle. And Donald Trump is most likely going to be in the White House in 2025. The point I am making here is that it's not just important to only understand what is happening, but it's also really important to understand why this is happening. The way that you handle your message, the way that you present the message, and the way that you present yourself, they all may seem like secondary things, and they are secondary things, but they still matter, and people who forget that they matter will always ultimately pay the price. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe, and if you really liked it, you can support me on Subscribestar or Ko-Fi, or by buying some merch. Till next time.